Common triggers for masturbation often include boredom, loneliness, stress, anxiety, and easy access to pornography or sexual imagery. Many people turn to masturbation as a form of escape or self-soothing when they feel overwhelmed or emotionally vulnerable. For others, it becomes a response to a specific pattern, such as being alone at night, using the phone in bed, or after a stressful day at work. Psychological patterns like shame, guilt, and compulsive behavior can also reinforce the cycle. The habit is often fueled by automatic thoughts and conditioned responses, which makes it challenging to stop without intentional awareness and effort. Masturbation is the act of stimulating one's own genitals, usually to achieve sexual pleasure and release. It is a natural and common behavior experienced by people of all genders and ages. For many, it is a form of exploring their bodies, relieving stress, or satisfying sexual urges when no partner is available. While it is generally considered a normal part of human sexuality, excessive or compulsive masturbation can interfere with daily life, relationships, and mental health, prompting the need for change. Sexual urges are primarily driven by a combination of biological, psychological, and environmental factors. From a biological standpoint, the brain releases chemicals like dopamine and serotonin during arousal and orgasm, which create a pleasurable feeling and a sense of reward. Testosterone and other hormones also influence the intensity of sexual drive, especially in males. These urges can become more pronounced during puberty, hormonal fluctuations, stress, or when exposed to sexual stimuli. The brain develops associations between certain behaviors and pleasure, which is why masturbation can easily become a reinforced habit if it's repeatedly used to cope with emotional discomfort. Masturbation becomes a problem when it begins to negatively affect a person's well-being, productivity, relationships, or sense of self-control. Some warning signs include feeling unable to stop despite wanting to, using it to avoid emotional pain or responsibilities, lying or hiding the behavior, and feeling deep guilt or shame afterward. If someone is masturbating multiple times a day to the point of exhaustion, neglecting important life tasks, or depending on pornography for arousal, it may signal a deeper issue such as compulsive sexual behavior or emotional distress. Recognizing when it crosses the line from a personal choice to a compulsive habit is crucial in beginning the journey toward change. Understanding this distinction allows individuals to approach their struggle without shame, but with clarity, strategy, and hope for healing. Compulsive masturbation can lead to a number of physical consequences that often go unnoticed in the beginning but become more apparent over time. When done excessively, it can cause fatigue, lower back pain, and even pelvic discomfort in some individuals due to repeated strain on the body. Some people report a decrease in physical energy and stamina, particularly if masturbation becomes a regular escape from physical activity. In men, it may lead to a temporary drop in testosterone levels right after ejaculation, which can result in a sluggish feeling or lack of motivation. Over time, chronic overstimulation of the nervous system through constant sexual release can dull the body's natural sensitivity, leading to issues such as delayed ejaculation or reduced pleasure during intimacy. On the emotional and mental health front, compulsive masturbation often goes hand in hand with guilt, shame, and low self-esteem. Many individuals feel trapped in a cycle where they regret the act immediately afterward but continue repeating it. This emotional roller coaster can fuel anxiety and depression, especially when masturbation is used to cope with negative feelings like loneliness, stress, or rejection. The compulsive nature of the behavior can interfere with focus, motivation, and productivity, making it harder for a person to maintain consistency in work, studies, or personal goals. Over time, the mind can become conditioned to seek quick gratification rather than working through challenges or building long-term satisfaction. Social and spiritual struggles are another layer of the impact that compulsive masturbation can have. Socially, people who engage in it excessively often begin to withdraw from friends, romantic relationships, and social engagements. They may prefer isolation or feel embarrassed around others due to internal shame or fear of being discovered. In severe cases, it can make real human connection feel intimidating or less rewarding than the private habit. Spiritually, many individuals, especially those with strong religious or moral beliefs, experience deep conflict between their values and their actions. This can result in feelings of hypocrisy, spiritual dryness, or disconnection from God or their faith community. The sense of spiritual failure can also damage a person's sense of worth and identity, making it harder to seek help or forgive themselves. The link with pornography addiction is strong and often forms a powerful cycle. Masturbation frequently becomes tied to the consumption of explicit content, creating a loop where the brain is constantly flooded with dopamine during artificial stimulation. Over time, this can rewire the brain's reward system, making natural experiences like intimacy with a partner or even everyday joy seem dull by comparison. This can also lead to tolerance, where the person seeks more extreme or varied content to achieve the same level of excitement. The result is often a deeper addiction that becomes harder to break and more damaging to relationships, mental clarity, and spiritual health. To stop masturbation effectively, breaking the connection to pornography is often a critical part of the healing process. Without addressing this link, efforts to quit may feel like trying to break a chain by snapping just one link while leaving the rest intact. Loneliness and emotional void are often silent drivers behind the urge to masturbate compulsively. When individuals feel isolated or emotionally unfulfilled, they may seek out masturbation as a temporary escape or a way to feel something when everything else feels empty. The lack of meaningful human connection, especially emotional intimacy, can create a vacuum that is quickly filled by fantasy and self-stimulation. Over time, masturbation becomes a coping mechanism to mask deeper emotional needs, such as the desire to be loved, understood, or physically close to someone. Breaking this cycle requires recognizing that the act is not just physical but deeply emotional, and addressing the root means learning to connect with others more meaningfully, engaging in supportive relationships, and filling emotional gaps with healthier, more sustainable forms of comfort and connection. Stress, anxiety, and boredom are major triggers that make masturbation a default response to overwhelming emotions or lack of stimulation. In moments of high tension, the brain seeks relief, and masturbation offers a quick dopamine boost. For many, it becomes a way to self-soothe without addressing the actual source of stress or anxiety. Similarly, during periods of idleness or mental exhaustion, boredom can lead the mind to wander towards sexual thoughts and behaviors simply to pass time or feel excitement. This creates a false sense of relief that only lasts temporarily, often followed by guilt or dissatisfaction. The key to overcoming this trigger lies in learning new stress management techniques, such as exercise, mindfulness, journaling, or engaging in purposeful activities that occupy the mind and body with meaningful tasks rather than empty stimulation. Exposure to sexual content plays a massive role in conditioning the mind toward compulsive masturbation. Whether through pornography, social media, movies, music, or even suggestive advertisements, the constant stream of sexual stimuli wires the brain to associate arousal with constant visual input. Over time, this builds a sensitivity and dependency on external triggers to feel pleasure, making it harder to resist the urge when confronted with such content. The more one consumes sexual content, the more the brain craves it, creating a cycle that reinforces both mental and physical habits. Breaking free requires setting firm boundaries with digital consumption, using filters and accountability tools, and retraining the mind to seek joy and satisfaction from non-sexual experiences. Detoxing from sexual media helps reset dopamine levels and renews the brain's natural reward system. Childhood experiences and trauma can deeply shape sexual behavior and become hidden influences behind compulsive masturbation. Individuals who were exposed to sexual material at a young age, abused, or lacked proper sex education may develop unhealthy associations with sexuality. For some, masturbation becomes a form of control or comfort when other areas of life felt unsafe or chaotic. Others may have grown up in environments where emotional needs were unmet, leading them to find solace in self-pleasure. These past wounds can manifest in present behaviors that feel uncontrollable or shameful. Healing from this requires compassionate self-awareness, possibly therapy, and reframing one's understanding of sexuality as something that can be healthy and intentional rather than compulsive and secretive. Habit loops and conditioning form the invisible framework that sustains the cycle of masturbation. When a person repeatedly responds to a trigger with the behavior of masturbation, followed by the temporary reward of pleasure or stress relief, the brain forms a loop that becomes automatic. The cue could be loneliness, boredom, or even a specific time of day or place. Over time, this loop becomes deeply ingrained and difficult to break, not because of weakness but because of neurological wiring. Replacing the habit involves identifying the specific triggers and consciously interrupting the routine with a healthier response. This might mean going for a walk, calling a friend, engaging in a creative project, or practicing deep breathing. The goal is to break the automaticity of the habit and retrain the brain to associate triggers with new, life-affirming actions instead of old, self-defeating ones. Consistency and patience are essential, as true change comes from building new neural pathways and sticking with them until they become the new default. Self-compassion is a crucial foundation for anyone trying to stop masturbation, especially when it has become compulsive or habitual. Many people fall into the trap of self-criticism, thinking that constant guilt or harsh inner judgment will motivate change. In reality, this approach only deepens shame, reinforces the cycle of addiction, and makes it harder to recover. When you criticize yourself harshly after a relapse, you often feel defeated, hopeless, and unworthy, emotions that can trigger more urges and lead to another relapse. Self-compassion, on the other hand, involves acknowledging your struggle with kindness and honesty. It means telling yourself, "I messed up, but I'm still growing. I'm human and I'm learning." This mindset makes it easier to bounce back after failure, maintain consistency, and build resilience over time. Setting a clear why for change gives direction and motivation to your efforts. Without a strong personal reason to stop, your commitment will be shaky when temptations hit. Your why needs to be deeper than just avoiding guilt. It should be tied to your values, dreams, and relationships. For some, it's the desire to build real intimacy instead of escaping into fantasy. For others, it's about regaining energy, focus, and clarity in life. Some may want to reconnect with their faith or feel at peace with themselves spiritually. Write down your reasons. Be specific. Remind yourself of them daily. When urges arise, returning to your why gives you strength and helps you resist short-term gratification for the sake of long-term purpose. Developing mental discipline is not about being perfect. It's about training your mind to stay focused and intentional even when emotions are intense. Mental discipline starts with awareness, learning to observe your thoughts without letting them control you. For example, when a sexual thought pops into your head, you can choose to acknowledge it without acting on it. That small pause creates space for better decisions. Consistency is more important than intensity. Instead of trying to change overnight, commit to small daily habits like journaling, breathing exercises, cold showers, physical workouts, and structured routines. These practices build emotional stability and reduce the chances of falling into automatic behaviors. Over time, you develop greater self-control, and the urge no longer feels like a command, it becomes just another choice. Replacing shame with purpose means moving away from seeing yourself as broken or unworthy and stepping into a mindset that views this struggle as a meaningful challenge. Shame tells you that you are the problem. Purpose reminds you that you're someone capable of growth, transformation, and service. Every time you fight the urge, you're not just saying no to masturbation, you're saying yes to something greater. A version of yourself that is focused, present, and driven. Think about the people who look up to you, the goals you've postponed, and the peace you want to experience. Let those guide you. When you replace shame with purpose, you stop hiding and start healing. You don't run from the struggle, you rise through it. And that mindset shift is what separates temporary attempts from lasting change. Daily habits play a crucial role in preventing relapse when trying to stop masturbation. These habits must be intentional, structured, and repeated consistently to create new neural pathways that replace the compulsive behavior. Start by establishing a firm sleep schedule. When your body is well rested, your mind is more resilient and less vulnerable to sexual urges. Avoid idle time, especially in the early morning and late at night, when the temptation tends to strike hardest. Fill your day with purposeful activities including work, study, fitness, and hobbies that engage your hands and your brain. Make a to-do list every morning and commit to completing specific tasks, no matter how small. This boosts self-discipline and trains your mind to follow structure rather than impulse. Hydrate well, eat healthy meals, and reduce sugar and caffeine, as these can heighten anxiety and restlessness, increasing the likelihood of a relapse. Dealing with urges in real time requires both awareness and immediate action. First, recognize the early signs, restlessness, boredom, loneliness, or sexual fantasy, and label them without judgment. Then disrupt the mental pattern. Stand up, move to a different environment, or do a quick physical activity like push-ups, jumping jacks, or a short walk. Changing your physical state shifts your mental focus. Breathe deeply and slowly. Count your breaths or recite a calming affirmation such as, "I am in control of my body." Urges usually last a few minutes. If you can outlast them with focused action, they pass. Keep your hands busy, hold a stress ball, drink water, read aloud, or text a trusted accountability partner. The goal is not to fight the urge aggressively, but to redirect your energy without feeding the impulse. A digital detox is essential for breaking the cycle of stimulation that fuels the habit. Uninstall social media and entertainment apps that often serve as gateways to triggering content. Use accountability and blocking tools like Covenant Eyes, Custodio, or Cold Turkey to limit access to explicit websites. Replace mindless scrolling with curated content that builds your mind, audiobooks, podcasts, documentaries, or educational channels. Consider setting your phone to grayscale mode or enabling downtime features during critical hours. Limit time alone with devices, especially in your bedroom or bathroom. If possible, use a computer in a public space and avoid taking your phone to bed. Log out of adult websites, delete saved passwords, and clear your browser history daily. Reducing exposure to triggers creates a safe digital environment where self-control becomes more achievable. Replacing the habit with positive activities is a game changer. Masturbation often fills a void, emotional, physical, or spiritual. So, identify healthy substitutes that provide the same sense of release, joy, or accomplishment. Regular physical exercise is one of the most effective alternatives. It reduces stress, boosts dopamine naturally, and builds confidence. Practice a skill you've always wanted to learn: playing an instrument, drawing, coding, or cooking. Volunteer in your community or join a cause. Build real human connections by spending more time with family and friends. Develop your spiritual side through prayer, fasting, or reading sacred texts. Keeping your hands and mind engaged with uplifting tasks retrains your body to seek fulfillment through growth instead of gratification. Your morning and nighttime routines set the tone for your behavior. Start each morning with an activity that strengthens your self-discipline. Make your bed, stretch, or read something inspirational. Avoid using your phone for at least 30 minutes after waking. Instead, write in a journal, review your goals, or engage in a brief workout. Begin the day with direction so you're not reacting to emotions or temptations. At night, avoid screens at least an hour before bed. Use that time to reflect on your day, write what you're grateful for, and plan the next day's priorities. Take a warm shower, dim the lights, and listen to calming audio if needed. Go to bed at a consistent time. Sleep resets your willpower. The more structured your morning and night become, the less room there is for compulsive habits to sneak in. When your days start and end with clarity and purpose, relapse becomes less likely. Drawing strength from your belief system is one of the most powerful tools in overcoming the struggle with masturbation. When a person connects their desire to change with their faith or spiritual values, it creates a sense of purpose that is far deeper than willpower alone. Belief systems often provide clear moral frameworks, teachings on discipline, and an understanding of human weakness paired with divine grace. Tapping into these beliefs can help shift focus away from guilt and toward hope, redemption, and personal growth. Knowing that you are not alone, that a higher power cares about your transformation, can inspire perseverance during times of weakness and temptation. Prayer becomes a daily reset button. It's not just about asking for help, but about intentionally inviting divine strength into your struggle. Consistent prayer helps to calm the mind, align the heart with deeper values, and reinforce your commitment to change. It brings a sense of accountability not out of fear but out of love and trust. Even short, honest prayers in moments of temptation can create just enough space between impulse and action to choose differently. Over time, prayer becomes more than a tool, it becomes a relationship that sustains you. Meditation works in harmony with prayer, especially when it includes mindfulness or scripture-based reflection. It helps you become more aware of your thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations. Masturbation often thrives in unconscious habits, so training your mind to be present can help break automatic responses. Meditation builds internal peace and sharpens your ability to pause and make better decisions. It recenters you when anxiety, boredom, or cravings surface, teaching you that urges are temporary and you have power over them. Fasting adds a physical dimension to your spiritual discipline. When practiced correctly, it teaches you to say no to the body so that the spirit can lead. Fasting from food or digital distractions, especially sexually stimulating content, trains the mind and body to obey the higher will rather than impulse. It is not about punishment but about focus. Fasting also creates space for deeper spiritual reflection, helping you identify patterns and surrender control to something greater than yourself. Over time, you learn that denying yourself one thing can unlock strength in other areas of life, including sexual self-control. Accountability is often the missing link in personal transformation. Trying to overcome masturbation in secret is isolating and often discouraging. Sharing your struggle with someone you trust, a spiritual mentor, counselor, or a small support group, can be life-changing. When you have someone checking in on you, praying with you, and reminding you of your goals, it becomes harder to fall into the cycle of secrecy and shame. Mentorship also allows you to receive wisdom from someone who has walked a similar path and can offer guidance without judgment. In spiritual communities, you're more likely to find this kind of compassionate accountability rooted in love and truth. Purity is not about perfection. It's about living with integrity and intentionality. For many people of faith, sexual purity is not just a rule but a way to honor the body, mind, and soul. Pursuing purity redefines your relationship with sexuality as something sacred rather than something to indulge in at will. It helps you see others not as objects of pleasure but as people worthy of respect. It also teaches you to respect yourself, knowing that your body was created with purpose. When purity becomes a spiritual goal, the motivation to quit masturbation grows stronger, not just to avoid guilt, but to live in alignment with who you were created to be. With time, what once felt like a struggle turns into a testimony of transformation. Regaining focus and energy after breaking free from masturbation and porn involves rewiring your mental, emotional, and physical systems. When someone has been caught in compulsive sexual behavior, the brain becomes used to receiving frequent dopamine spikes with little to no effort. Over time, this leads to a lack of motivation, difficulty concentrating, and chronic fatigue. Once you begin to abstain, there is often a withdrawal period, but gradually, mental clarity returns. The energy once consumed by guilt, secrecy, and physical exhaustion is redirected into productivity, creativity, and meaningful pursuits. You'll find yourself able to complete tasks with greater enthusiasm, your memory improving, and your desire to pursue goals growing stronger. What used to drain you will now fuel you. Exercise, clean eating, and adequate sleep will further speed up this transformation, helping your brain and body rebuild their natural energy systems. Healing relationships begins with acknowledging the impact that porn and masturbation may have had on your connections with others. Isolation, irritability, secrecy, and lack of emotional availability are common consequences. To repair trust and rebuild closeness, open communication is essential. Whether it's with a partner, friend, or family member, honesty about your journey fosters vulnerability and connection. Apologizing for past behavior without making excuses and showing consistent behavioral change rebuilds credibility. As you become more emotionally stable, you create space to form new, healthier relationships. These new connections are based on respect, honesty, and shared values, not guilt or shame. Investing time in community, joining support groups, and re-engaging with people face-to-face helps replace the artificial companionship offered by porn with authentic human connection. Cultivating emotional intelligence and intimacy requires learning to identify, process, and express your feelings without resorting to sexual coping mechanisms. Many people turn to masturbation to avoid uncomfortable emotions like loneliness, stress, sadness, or boredom. Developing emotional intelligence means recognizing these triggers early, labeling them accurately, and finding constructive ways to deal with them, such as talking to a friend, journaling, or taking a walk. Over time, this builds emotional resilience. Intimacy, both emotional and physical, becomes healthier when you're present and attuned to your feelings and those of others. You learn to listen more deeply, empathize more naturally, and connect without the pressure of lust. Emotional intelligence also helps you set boundaries, avoid toxic dynamics, and engage in relationships where vulnerability is mutual and respected. The joy of self-control and freedom cannot be overstated. What once felt like a source of pleasure now becomes something you're proud to live without. You begin to experience a quiet confidence that comes from mastering your impulses instead of being ruled by them. This newfound self-control spills into other areas of life. Better discipline at work, more patience in relationships, more clarity in decision-making. Freedom isn't just about abstinence. It's about having the power to choose what aligns with your values and long-term happiness. There's joy in waking up without guilt, in looking people in the eye without shame, and in knowing that you are in charge of your body and mind. This isn't just about quitting a habit, It's about becoming the kind of person who lives with integrity, passion, and purpose. Relapse happens not because of weakness or failure, but because change, especially when breaking deeply ingrained habits like masturbation, is a process, not an event. Most people who try to quit this behavior face setbacks along the way. Understanding why relapse happens is the first step toward building long-term self-mastery. It often stems from a combination of emotional triggers, physical urges, environmental cues, and mental fatigue. When you're tired, lonely, stressed, or bored, your brain may seek comfort in old coping mechanisms. Even after a period of self-control, one moment of vulnerability can open the door to relapse, especially if you're exposed to sexual content, fantasy, or unstructured alone time. One of the most important truths about relapse is that it doesn't erase your progress. A single mistake doesn't define you unless you let it become a cycle. Turning setbacks into comebacks means choosing to learn from the slip rather than dwell in guilt. Guilt and shame can actually make the problem worse because they keep you emotionally stuck. The key is to respond quickly and constructively. Ask yourself what led to the relapse. Was it emotional stress, a particular situation, or digital exposure? Identify the exact moment the decision shifted. This level of honesty allows you to prevent the same pattern from repeating. Journaling is one of the most powerful tools in this recovery journey. After a relapse, take out your journal and record what happened without judgment. Describe what you were feeling before, during, and after. What triggered the behavior? What thoughts went through your mind? Were you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Use the journal to explore the truth, not to punish yourself. Over time, you'll begin to notice trends. You may see that most relapses happen late at night, or when you're idle, or when you're emotionally overwhelmed. This self-awareness becomes a defense strategy. When you track your behavior, you're not just writing about your failures, you're building a map to freedom. Reaffirming your commitment is essential after a setback. Don't just wait until the guilt fades. Stand up and make a fresh decision. Write down why you want to quit. Revisit the vision of the person you're becoming: focused, disciplined, sexually pure, emotionally strong. Speak affirmations out loud. I am not my mistake. I am in control. I choose growth. Recommit to your routines. Block the websites again, re-establish your sleep schedule, return to your accountability partner or prayer group. Every time you get back up, you're proving to yourself that you're not powerless. Success is not about never falling, but about always rising with more wisdom and resolve than before. Becoming purpose-driven is one of the most powerful long-term strategies in overcoming masturbation. When a person lacks a sense of purpose, the mind becomes a breeding ground for distractions, temptations, and short-term pleasures. A clear purpose creates direction, fills time with meaningful activity, and offers a reason to stay disciplined. Purpose doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as pursuing a healthier body, building a stronger relationship with God, developing a business, finishing school with excellence, serving your community, or being a present, honorable future spouse or parent. When you define your why, you give your willpower a deeper anchor. It becomes easier to say no to destructive habits when you know what you're saying yes to. Creating goals, daily plans, and a vision for your future can keep your mind focused, engaged, and less vulnerable to idle moments when urges usually strike. Staying vigilant against triggers is an ongoing part of long-term freedom. Just because you've made progress doesn't mean the temptation disappears. Masturbation is often tied to emotional, environmental, and digital cues that have been reinforced over time. You need to be brutally honest about your weak spots. This might include late-night phone use, certain websites, extended periods alone, specific social media platforms, or even stress from work or school. Recognize the patterns. Keep a log or journal if needed. Use content blockers and accountability software, limit screen time, and build routines that guard your vulnerable hours, especially at night or when you feel emotionally drained. Keep yourself surrounded by healthy influences, whether through uplifting content, friendship, or faith-based environments. Vigilance doesn't mean living in fear. It means being prepared and conscious. You train your brain to pause and make better decisions when triggers arise, instead of falling back into autopilot. Mentoring others and sharing your story can become one of the most healing and empowering parts of your journey. Once you've gained some stability and freedom, don't keep your experience to yourself. Many people silently struggle with masturbation, feeling alone and ashamed. By being open about your past, you not only help break the stigma but also reinforce your own growth. Teaching what you've learned solidifies the lessons in your own mind. It creates accountability, encourages humility, and allows you to be a beacon of hope for someone else. Mentoring doesn't always have to be formal. It could be a private conversation with a friend, a blog post, a podcast, or involvement in a men's or women's support group. Sharing your testimony can inspire others to start their own journey and remind you how far you've come. It also prevents pride and reminds you that staying free requires continued growth. Living a fulfilled, healthy life is both a reward and a strategy for long-term freedom. A full life makes room for love, joy, peace, and productivity, things that masturbation can never truly offer. Emotional balance, spiritual depth, physical fitness, and meaningful relationships contribute to a lifestyle where unhealthy habits lose their appeal. Invest in your mental and physical health through regular exercise, nutritious food, deep sleep, and emotional regulation. Pursue hobbies that bring you joy and creativity. Build real, deep relationships with people you trust. Create space for prayer, mindfulness, or reflection. Keep evolving, learning, and dreaming. The more you engage with life, the less appealing an isolated, self-focused pattern like masturbation becomes. True fulfillment comes not just from avoiding temptation, but from walking in the wholeness of who you were created to be.